What is up, my trunk slaying friends? Happy Tuesday. How are you today? I'm excited because today I've decided to continue to deviate from my onboarding series to talk about something I really like talking about because it really rustles everyone's jimmies. Today we're going to talk a little bit about commoditization. I want you all, if you would, for a moment to open up your imaginariums and join me. You are out and about in your town and you find that you're a little bit hungry. You step into the local shop, open the door makes some sort of bell or ding noise. You walk in and you are immediately hit with that aroma of baking dough, burning cheese, and tomato sauce. As you gaze around, there are booths or tables, and you walk up to the counter. You place your order for a 14-inch pizza. If you like me, you're pretty vanilla, so you like a little pepperoni on that. You wait your 15 to 30 minutes, get your pizza, and eat that delicious, yummy pizza. Once again, if you're like me, the entire 14-inch pizza you eat yourself before you go home. No sharing. I give this example because while my description was pretty vague, I have a pretty strong feeling that every single person listening, if you're playing along, you were able to imagine a pizza establishment that you have been to, whether that's a local chain, a one-off, a national chain. My description was generic enough where I described pretty much any pizzeria from the low end to the high end that exists. And the reason why that works is, for the most part, a pizzeria has been commoditized. There certainly is a formula that goes into running a pizza restaurant. And you might be saying to me, but the pizza restaurant I'm thinking of is different than the formula. And I want you to hold on to that thought because you're not wrong, but you're not wrong for reasons I bet you didn't think about. So I would argue that in a lot of ways, your MSP and the MSP space, just in general, has become a lot like my pizzeria example, in that while there are many different ways to run a pizza place and different flavor styles of pizzas, the overall formula and format has now become pretty much the same anywhere, to the point where I could provide an equally generic description of an MSP, and I bet most people would go, hey, that's me, or I know an MSP just like that. So based on that, I would argue this space has already been commoditized quite a bit, and quite a bit more than maybe some of us are willing to admit. And so you might be thinking, okay, well, I don't really like that, but where are you going with this, Dean? What's that mean to me? So that's what I want to talk a little bit about, because I think once we accept that our industry has really already taken a giant lurch towards being commoditized, if not already being so, there are some advantages and disadvantages to us that come from this. So right away, there's going to be some people who are listening that are going to say, no, I'm different, or my market is different, or my MSP is different, and what we do is special. And I just kind of want to rip that Band-Aid off. No, it's not. And no, you're not. And stop. Just enough. You look and sound like a clown when you say that. Your market isn't different. You're not different. We're all doing exactly the same thing. And I don't really understand this obsession with that concept. There seems to be this entrepreneurial mindset that different equals good. And we've all seen the meme with the bent fork that says just because you're different doesn't mean that you're useful. And so I do kind of want to leave. Everybody right now has got their arms crossed. It's like, I'm different. It doesn't apply to me. You're a bent fork. You're useless. So if you are genuinely that different, you're not like the clever differentiator you are. This isn't a high school movie from the 90s. You're not the quirky girl that's going to go through a growth journey and let her hair down and take her glasses off in the final scene for prom. No, you're the same as the rest of us, so stop it. So there is probably a smaller percentage of people after that admonishment that are still sitting here and saying, no, really, like my MSP is genuinely different. And I would be willing to accept in the bell curve of MSPs. Obviously, like if you have a normal distribution, a few things are going to be at either end. Like I get that. So there's a very, very, very small percentage of all MSPs, let's say less than 10% of all the MSPs on earth that are genuinely different. And before you latch onto that statement and go, aha, see, I told you I was different. You successful? How big are you? Yeah, that's what I thought. There might be some MSPs that are different. How many of them have grown past 10 million, 50 million, 80 million, 100 million? Right. Because there's a formula in that normal distribution. There is a formula for how this works. Different doesn't mean better. Different doesn't mean good. Stop it. All right. So I compared us to pizzerias, and I probably made some of you pretty angry or sad. What's the point of this video? Why are we talking about this? Well, there's a post that I saw this morning on RMSP, which is a post I see all the time. And it's basically somebody who has started a new MSP and they need clients and they have no idea how to get clients. And if you want an example of how commoditized and pizzeria shop their industry is, look at those posts and literally pick an MSP forum and pick a week and just randomly sort. And I guarantee you, after you've only had to scroll maybe like half a dozen times, you will find one of these posts. That is how easy it is to open a pizza store, I mean an MSP, without actually knowing how to run a business and have the formula tell you exactly what you need to do, right? So depending on how you want to look at that, the gatekeeper in me says that's terrible, but if I'm being honest, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, think about that for a second. Like anybody that thinks they want to open an MSP, whether we feel they should or they shouldn't, read eMyth Revisited if you're one of those people who isn't sure if you should be opening a business. But think about that. Like that's how easy it is now for somebody who says, I want to do this, to go out, basically get the playbook of what you need to do. You know, you get the space, you get some ovens, you get the dough, the sauce, the cheese, and a register. And there you go. Like that's a pizza shop. Like we've hit that point, MSPs, which means that anyone can own and run an MSP. I'm not saying anybody can own and run an MSP successfully, but anyone can try. I don't think that's a bad thing. There's some other advantages that come to being commoditized. So most of you that don't live out in the literal middle of nowhere, so pretty much anybody who doesn't live in like the plains of Saskatchewan or something, you probably have fast food restaurants. And what ends up happening if you get whatever the first one is, let's say you get a McDonald's, within a few years across the street it'll be a Burger King, and then a Wendy's, and then a Popeyes, and then a Chick-fil-A, like whatever your regional restaurants are, they will all sprout up in a group. Because when you have a commoditized offering, even if each one of those places is selling the same food, burgers, or similar but different food, just fast food, you start to create a demand and a location for that type of commodity. So it's not a bad thing that MSPs are becoming commoditized, because now that allows the heretofore useless Google search of MSPs near me to actually start returning results so that small businesses can need IT support. And that really is the crux of this whole thing. Just like in my example of pizzas, just like everybody needs pizza, everybody needs small business IT support. Like seriously, even the pizza shops need IT support. So it's a need that exists. And when we start to coalesce in certain markets and areas, we start to establish the fact that a solution for that market pain point also exists, and this is what it looks like. And yeah, I would argue that you probably don't want to open a pizza store next to a pizza store next to a pizza store when your only differentiator is Greek, Italian, and I don't know, Chicago deep dish, and those are your only differentiators. But there is enough business to go around, and commoditizing allows us to work as a community to drive more business into that general funnel. So the other thing being a commodity does that is my favorite thing as an operations person. So as you all know, this industry struggles with standardization, regulation, and just general KPIs and metrics. It's all over the place. A lot of this has not been universally adopted. We don't really have a regulatory body that comes in and says this is what an MSP has to do and doesn't have to do. Some individual verticals and industries have started to try to do this, but it's the Wild West and it's a hot mess, and everybody hates it. MSPs hate it because we can't tell our clients you have to buy a thing or else. Our clients hate it because they don't know if they trust that we're just trying to sell them nonsense. Vendors hate it because they're trying to solve a pain point that the MSPs maybe don't realize they should be worried about, so on and so forth. You know what solves almost all of that, even if we don't have official regulation? Accepting that we're a commodity. And you might be saying, I don't believe you. And so I will give you the example, pivoting ever so slightly on foods. How big is a large fry? I didn't say from where, but how big is a large fry? Everybody in their head automatically can picture approximately what a large amount of fries should be from their place of choice. If I dragged you to a fast food restaurant you have never been to, and I said, order a large fry, you would have a rough predetermined standard of what that should be. And if what you got was dramatically more or less than that standard, you would recognize that you did not get a large fry, even though you have no idea what a large fry is from that fast food restaurant. That's commoditization. You want another example of that? What's the SLA for waiting in a drive-thru? It's like what, like 5 to 8 minutes, maybe, right? No one has a drive-thru SLA at all. There's not that I know of. There's not a single fast food restaurant that has a like Domino's 30 minutes or less guarantee on the drive-thru. But yet, as a commoditized, standardized industry, we've all kind of set the SLA that if I'm waiting in that drive-thru line for more than 5 to maybe 8 minutes, something's going wrong inside. Like, that's not correct. And there are fast food restaurants that will then, like Chick-fil-A, that will send people out into the line to try and help mitigate the fact that we're all starting to get upset about an SLA that we were actually never even promised. But you see how easy that is? It sets a standard. And you may be saying, I don't care about what the informal standards are that are set. I want to set my own standard. Well, dramatic foreshadowing person, remember when I said earlier to hold on to the fact that you think that you're a little bit different than everybody else? Guess what having a universally accepted commoditized standard lets you do? It lets you sell above or below the standard. How many of you have been to a Five Guys? So Five Guys, their whole thing is we're a burger joint like anyone else, and I do think they make a pretty good burger, but their big thing is fries, and their big thing is they sell above the fry standard. So they cook all their fries to order fresh, they show you the potatoes, they explain where they're from and the oil they use, and then they dump the extras in the bag. So any size fry you get at the Five Guys is going to be at least 2x the size of the same fry you get anywhere else, even though you're only paying 1x fry prices. They're selling above the standard, and that's why you go to a Five Guys. Other places do it differently, and having that sort of standardization allows you to do that. And you might be saying, all right, Dean, I don't like pizza and I don't like fast food, and we're a white glove MSP. We provide white glove support. We don't relate to any of that nonsense. Got some news for you, friend. So let's say you're coming in here and you're saying to me, you know what, Dean, we are a Michelin star rated restaurant. We are not a franchise. We are not fast food. We are not a pizzeria. We are not commoditized. Well, first of all, hate to rip this band-aid off, but it's like 90-something% of restaurants that are individual restaurants fail within 10 years. So that's maybe not what you want to identify as white glove. And just in general, if you look at the failure rate of most SMBs, most service-based SMBs that try to provide really unique, bespoke, high-touch, true white glove service, most of them fail within 10 years. So just on a quick side note, but let's ignore that for a minute, and you feel you identify that way. All right, that's fine. The Capitol Grill's a chain restaurant, and it still comes pretty damn close to that experience. Other high-end luxury brands might be bespoke and unique and scarce, but they're still franchise. Like, I can go to Boston and walk into the Gucci store. Yeah, Gucci's high-end and fancy, but like the Gucci store looks the same in every major city because it's commoditized. I can go to a Ferrari dealership and be chased off the lot because I'm too poor to be on the lot. But I can go to a Ferrari dealership, right? Like, and a Ferrari dealership is gonna have the same general Ferrari experience. Not as many of them, but once again, it's been commoditized just at a much, much higher level. So I don't think there's anything wrong with accepting commoditization. It lets you sell above or below the standard. Capitol Grill's a great example of selling above the standard. The waiters there, have the crumb catchy thing and the fancy outfits, and you can't come in. I can't come in dressed like this at the Capitol Grill. It feels a little more exclusive. It's still a chain restaurant, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't understand that revulsion to accepting the fact that all of you do the exact same thing. You all have the exact same stack. Yes, you might use different products. Maybe your particular sauce you feel is better. That's fine. It's still sauce, right? Going back to pizza, what does a pizza need? Dough, sauce, cheese to be a pizza. Your sauce might have a different recipe from my sauce, but you still have to have sauce. Maybe your sauce is tomato free. All right, you're still putting something sauce-like on the pizza. You still have to have a sauce. Maybe you're a vegan pizzeria, so you don't actually put cheese on the pizza. You put something else to substitute. It's like some sort of soy substitute for the cheese. You still have to put something that we all agree resembles a cheese experience. You don't really not do that. In the same way at an MSP, you're all doing these basic things. So at the end of the day, why does any of this matter? Well, for the existing MSP that is struggling to grow, which is my guess would be probably less than 50% of my audience, I think it's important to remember that what you're doing isn't completely unique. Because when you reach that point in your growth cycle where you've hit your maturity ceiling, and that could be $1 million, $3 million, $5 million, $10 million. I'm not saying small, but when you hit that point where you cannot organically grow anymore and your referral network isn't able to extend beyond your existing client base anymore, where you've basically exhausted your available resources and you're at that steady state point, well, if you start trying to focus at that point a lot of resources into identifying what makes you different, you're going to waste a lot of money trying to go after very niche clients, and you're not going to grow, which is probably why you're stuck where you are. But at this point, if you accept that, hey, we provide basically a pizza. Now, we might provide the pizza better than our competitors. Nothing wrong with that. We might be the best pizzeria in the town, in our opinion, but we provide a pizza. It's a lot easier to sell pizza than it is a unique dining experience at your one-of-a-kind pizzeria, isn't it? We all know what pizza is. We don't all know what your pizzeria is like. And if you have that awakening moment, how easy is it at that point to pick an ICP and a vertical and just spam the crap out of your offering? Go nationwide. Hey, going forward, our particular version of pizza, we're going to make available to anybody that is in this vertical at this price point. If this looks like you, we will do it better than anyone else who is currently doing, because we make pizza specifically for people who like this kind of pizza. That's pretty easy to sell and grow on. If you're at the opposite end of this and you're a newer MSP who's just starting out, I think it's important to hear this, because a lot of us, and this is why I referenced the E-Myth earlier, or the accidental entrepreneur, a lot of us get into this space because we're good at one of the elements of making a pizza, not at running a pizza business. And so it's very natural that a lot of us end up on this point pretty early on, like the Reddit post I mentioned, where we're like, I can make pizza, but no one is eating it. Because as it turns out, the most important part of running an MSP is not really figuring out the formula that goes into making the pizza. Remember, normal distribution of that bell curve, the average pizza formula falls in the middle. We're all making the same damn thing. I can go to recipe.com and look up the pizza recipe. I don't need that. I need the skill set to do the rest of the stuff that goes into running a business. I need to be able to approach this from its totality as a business entrepreneur and not somebody who's just good at doing a thing who's hoping people will come and buy it. Because that is the other side to commoditization. Once we accept this industry is commoditized, yes, there is a demand, but it now means that that demand isn't natural and innate on its own. It's a pizza. I can get pizza anywhere. So now it becomes a matter of defining why I need to get pizza from you. And that's where most of you struggle. And that's why your MSPs don't really get off the ground when you're a new MSP, because you're assuming the fact that you make pizza will be the reason people come in the door. It is not. I can get pizza from anywhere. You need to learn how to drive people in the door. And if we don't accept this as an industry, then it's going to look like all of those franchise restaurants that fail all the time, that the predatory ones that I don't want to name, I don't want to get sued into earth. But there's a whole news thing about this. The predatory franchisee models for a couple of pretty well-known restaurants that were basically conning people into buying franchises in markets and areas they were known to fail in, to basically capture that money for a restaurant that was absolutely going to fail. And then the franchise company would come in and do a real estate grab on the land back. It's a whole rabbit hole. So there's no real big takeaway from this. There's not really a call to action or something I need you to do differently, other than I just really think it's important that we all start accepting the fact that this industry has largely been commoditized. And I think that's completely fine. And this revulsion that a lot of us have that commoditized somehow means that we can't be interesting or high quality. I don't really understand that, because that's like saying that your pizza restaurant can't get an A+ rating for cleanliness, quality, and grade of the food. To channel my inner Gordon Ramsay, like, why can't you buy local ingredients and just focus on having the freshest stuff in your restaurant, you donut? It's kind of the same thing here. Like, why does being commoditized mean that you have to be generic and sucky? I don't understand that. It's those two things don't have to live as opposition. And the fact that so many of you see it that way is probably a large reason why the people who are responding negatively in their minds in this video are probably stuck in their growth and maturity cycle at their MSP. There's nothing wrong with accepting the fact that the bell curve of MSPs, most of us fall in here. We're all functionally the same. I think that's fine. And think about one final takeaway from why that's kind of cool. So a lot of you are reaching a point where you're thinking about exiting your MSPs. And there's a lot of talk right now at a lot of shows about valuation, M&A, how to get the best out of your business, what to do, what to change. And if you haven't noticed, most of those valuation M&A talks are basically all telling you to do the exact same things, think the same way, and behave exactly the same way so that you're easier to buy. So if you would like another example of the fact that you're already a commodity and the people who are buying you know you're a commodity, well, go look at any M&A talk. But that aside, think about that pragmatically. Let's say you want to go and buy some other MSPs, or you want to sell your MSP. The more similar all of you are in terms of the way you run your business, you have standards, you have support SLAs, you have KPIs that are all very similar agreement structures. You all probably have similar stack categories. Let's say you're using NIST-CSF to fill out your stack. Well, if you've all checked off these boxes, it's a lot easier to integrate when your MSPs merge, acquire, or be acquired, which means that there's a lot more money that you can make from profit, which means you have much happier employees who are more likely to stay around, which means that your clients are more likely to stick around, which means that after that merger, when you want to go up on your rates, everybody's far more likely to say yes. You guys see that, right? That commoditization of our marketplace means standardization, which means that it's easier for us to integrate, cooperate, and work together. It also gives us a lot more power as an industry to hold our vendors accountable and hold them to that standard. If every vendor, I will point out that I think most of the standards that have been driven so far have been driven on the vendor side. We can shift that, MSPs. You get that, right? Like, back to the pizza store example. If every pizzeria needs a pizza oven, needs a point of sale terminal, needs a way to store and prepare ingredients, and needs the same ingredients, we also have the ability to go back to the things supplying those and say, this is the standard you have to meet, or we're not going to buy from you. And that has already happened in the food service industry, which is why I use that as an example. And I'll leave you with this parting thought. I pretty much, this entire video, talked about how the food service industry is dominated by standardized, commoditized offerings. And a very, very small percentage of the food service industry are those one-off restaurants, most of which fail within 10 years. That said, if we accept the premise that nearly every place you can eat in the food service industry is on some level commoditized, you ever talk to a chef or a cook and ask them if they think that they are just an average run-of-the-mill chef or the cook? Or were almost all of them going to tell you that they think that they're the best at what they do, or they're trying to be the best, or they want to be the best? See what I'm saying? Even in an industry that has already objectively been commoditized, we never lost the ability for individual people to shine, stand out, try to be the best, and to feel that they're still different and special. That doesn't have to go away. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. Go eat a pizza.